Hi, Jan here. This is the fourth video of the Fantasy Map series, and today we are going to talk about climate zones and biomes. So what we need is the map, the wind map, the 15 degrees, latitudes, and the ocean currents. Before we start, I would like to tell you that it doesn't need to be perfect from the start, because you're going to change things over and over again. So that is a normal process. You will see that you maybe want a larger desert or a larger forest or anything like that, because it fits your story or it fits your world as you want it. Without further ado, let's start. So we have the polar ice caps, which are from around the 75 degree latitude to the 90 degree latitude. They have very cold and dry winters, and it's very cold during summer, and you can expect a low precipitation. The polar ice caps have a very low biodiversity, so you can imagine you have a larger aquatic biodiversity, so you have crabs, you have fish, you have whales and the like, and on land you mainly have predators, for instance like seals that are semi-aquatic predators and polar bears which feed from the seals. As you can see, I don't have polar ice caps on my world. Maybe when I need them I'm going to include them in my world, but I don't think that I need them to show what I show you. Next up is the polar tundra. The polar tundra is from the 60 to the 80 degrees latitude. It's very cold and you have a low precipitation during winter, and it's cold and you have a low precipitation during summer. The polar tundra has permafrost beneath its surface, and during summer only the upper layer is going to melt. Therefore, only small plants like grasses or shrubs are able to grow in this environment. You can expect animals that feed off grass, like for instance mammoth or reindeer. But also small animals like rodents and animals that eat rodents would live there. Next up is the Subarctic Continental climate. It's from the 45 to the 75 latitude, and you can expect very cold winters with a very low precipitation and mild summers with a moderate precipitation. What you will find within the Subarctic Continental climate are boreal forests, and the further you go towards the polar tundra, the smaller the trees grow and the less trees are growing. You have animals like birds, deer, reindeer, moose, and other animals like them, but also small animals like rodents, smaller cats, and the like. Now we carry on with a humid continental climate. It's from the 40th to the 60th degree latitude, and it's cold during winter with a low precipitation and warm during summer with a moderate precipitation. You will find this climate inland, as the Subarctic Continental and the Oceanic climate will be on the coast. You can expect boreal forests, broadleaf forests, and green grasslands with a medium amount of biodiversity. Then we have the Oceanic climate. The Oceanic climate is also from the 40 to the 60 degrees latitude. You have cool and wet winters and mild and wet summers, and that is due to the warm ocean currents that flow along the coast. The Oceanic climate is similar to the humid continental climate, but it rains all the time. So when you have a picture of England in your head, that is what a oceanic climate looks like. Therefore, you have a lot of trees, you have a lot of broadleaf trees and conifers, and you rarely have grasslands. That might be counterintuitive, because when you think about England, Ireland, Germany, and other countries within Europe, you also think about large grasslands. But that is because people have used wood to build houses, ships, and to keep them warm, and therefore they deforested all the places. In the place I live within Germany, the Romans have burnt down large parts of the forest just to cultivate grapes for their wine. Sometimes you just need to set your priorities right. What you can find within the oceanic climates are temperate rainforests. They are mainly on the coast or on elevations like mountains. This is the place where a lot of ferns and moss grows, but also large rivers are found where birds eat salmon or salmon lay their eggs. Now we have cold deserts. They are from the 25 to the 50 degrees latitude. They are cool during winter and hot during summer, and throughout the year they are dry. You will find cold deserts within inland, there where the rainfall doesn't get, and within the rain shadow of mountains. And around these cold deserts we have the cold steppes at the same latitude. It's cold in winter and warm in summer, and throughout the year you have a low precipitation. So they work as a small transition line between the deserts and the other climates. Now we're looking at the Mediterranean climate. It's mild during winter and we have a moderate rainfall. It's hot and dry during summer. It's from the 30s to the 45 degrees latitude. This is a place where you don't have a lot of biodiversity, but this is the climate where crops grow the best. It's to say that this climate occurs only on the west side of a landmass, but only if the planet has the same rotation as the Earth has, else it would be on the opposite side. And that is due to the cold ocean currents. And then we also have the humid subtropical climate. It's from the 25 to the 45 degrees latitude, and it's like the opposite of the Mediterranean. So it's warm during winter and you have a moderate precipitation, and it's hot during summer and you have a high precipitation. These climates will be on the opposite side of the Mediterranean, and that is due to the warm ocean currents. So now we have the hot steppes. The hot steppes are a transition between the hot deserts and the other climates. It's from the 10 to the 35 degrees latitude. It's hot throughout the year and you can expect a low precipitation. As within cold steppes you have a low biodiversity, but within both you could have animals like horses or cattle, goats and other animals that you can use as source for food. Then we have the hot deserts, and as the cold deserts you have a very low biodiversity. You will have a lot of sand dunes, but mainly sand rocks. They will extend in offshore winds and also will be found in the rain shadow of mountains. It's from the 10 to the 30 degrees latitude and it's very hot and dry throughout the year. Then we have the tropical savanna. The tropical savanna is from the 5th to the 20 degrees latitude. It's warm and dry during winter and hot and wet during summer. When you have a coast with warm currents, you can expect that you have extending towards the 25 degrees latitude. The tropical savanna will also be a transition between hot deserts, hot steppes and tropical rain or monsoon forests. You already have a rather high biodiversity within the tropical savanna. So when you think about Africa, for instance, gnus, elephants, and animals that hunt those animals will live within the tropical savanna. In a lot of places within one part of the year, you will have very dry grasses, and during another part of the year, you will have a lot of rainfall and therefore you have green grasses. Therefore, the animals have to wander around a lot to always have food available. Next we have the tropical monsoon climate. It's from the 5 to the 15 degrees latitude. It's warm and dry during winter and hot and very wet during summer. It's a transition between the savanna and the rainforest, and it will extend where you have onshore winds. You will have large tropical monsoon areas where you have a large landmass around the 30 degrees latitude and no landmass around the equator. So during winter you have a high pressure area on this landmass, and therefore there it's dry during winter as the wind comes from the high pressure area and pushes the moist water away from the coast. During summer you will have a low pressure area. So a lot of the moist air from the warm currents will be sucked towards the low pressure area, and therefore you can expect a lot of rainfall. When you then also have large mountains within the region, you will have an extreme monsoon area, as you can see in India. So at least we have the tropical rainforest. It's from 0 to the 10th degree latitude. It's hot and wet during winter and hot and wet during summer. It will not exist within the wind shadows of mountains or the rain shadows of mountains, and will thin out the further you go inland. So what you can do now is select the color of the climate and choose a color that you want for your map, or you look at another map and take the colors from this map and fill them within the places where you would have the climate zone. And then you will end up with something like I have here. It doesn't look good at the moment, but as said, you will change it over time, and when you just look at the transitions between the different climate zones and you're gonna change a little bit of it, it will look much better. So now when we look at one side being changed and the other one's not changed, then we can see how much of a difference it makes. But what you have to keep in mind, this map is not very detailed. So it's a map from the whole world. So when you zoom in, it will look way worse. This is also the reason why you will see in most fantasy maps or fantasy worlds that only a smaller part of the world is very detailed. For instance, you have several continents and only in one continent you have a large history, all the cities mapped out, etc. That is because you will need to make for several of the places a smaller map where you can put all the cities and so on. You have it with the Wheel of Time, with Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. You can see in all of those that they only have a part of the world mapped out very detailed. So you can go as deep as you want, and I'm also a very big fan of going very detailed within a fantasy map. You shouldn't think that you can make your whole fantasy map very detailed before you start your book, role-playing game or whatever. So it will take a long time until you finally have a world that you want to use. So keep that in mind when you create your fantasy world, that it's one step after another and not all at the same time. So this is the fantasy map that I use for the role-playing game that I create. You can see when I zoom in, it doesn't look very great, and it would be hard to place cities or anything like that on such a small map. And therefore I created an extra map just for this part of the world. And I did this for all parts of the world because you can now put in trade routes, cities, and all what you need to flesh out your world. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something, and we see us in the next one.